Dhammadina Vipassana Center, Joshua Tree number 5. This is day 4.
I don't know.
It's March the 10th, 2010. Bhante Vimalaramsi. Greater Discourse on the Destruction of Craving, number 38, the Mahātaṇhāsankhaya Sutta.
All right. Before we get started, I want everyone to know how pleased I am with your invitation. So now sit longer.
Please do everybody's invitation. So now sit longer.
Okay. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in Sāti in Jeta's Grove, Anatham Kandika's Park. Now on that occasion a pernicious view had arisen in a monk named Sati, son of a fisherman. This is kind of a monk joke. Sati was the son of a fisherman, but he hated the smell of fish. And because he held on to this view, this is just kind of a little joke about him and his wrong view. As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, it is this same consciousness that runs and wanders through the rounds of rebirth, not another. Now this particular view is a Brahmin, or these days we call it Hindu, but it's actually Brahmin view, and it has the soul belief in it. This is the same soul that runs from one birth to the next.
Is that what you call Atman?
Yes. Several monks, having heard about this, went to the monk Sati and asked him, "Friend Sati, is it true that such a pernicious view has arisen in you?" This is like walking up to somebody today and saying, "Are you so stupid that you believe this?" This is kind of what they're saying. Exactly so, friends. As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, it is this same consciousness that runs and wanders through the rounds of rebirth, not another. Then those monks, desiring to detach him from that pernicious view, pressed and questioned and cross-questioned him thus. "Friend Sati, do not say so. Do not misrepresent the Blessed One. It is not good to misrepresent the Blessed One. The Blessed One would not speak thus. For in many discourses the Blessed One stated consciousness to be dependently arisen, since without a condition there is no origination of consciousness." This will become more clear as we go along. Yet, although pressed and questioned and cross-questioned by those monks in this way, the monk Sati, son of a fisherman, still obstinately adhered to that pernicious view and continued to insist upon it. Since the monks were unable to detach him from that pernicious view, they went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, sat down at one side and told him all that had occurred, adding, "Venerable Sir, since we could not detach the monk Sati, son of a fisherman, from his pernicious view, we have reported this matter to the Blessed One." Then the Blessed One addressed a certain monk, which was always Ananda. "Come, monk, tell the monk Sati, son of a fisherman, in my name that the teacher calls him, Yes, Venerable Sir, he replied. And he went to the monk Sati and told him, the teacher calls you, friend Sati. Yes, friend, he replied. He went to the Blessed One after paying homage to him, sat down at one side. The Blessed One then asked him, Sati, is it true that the following pernicious view has arisen in you? As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, it is the same consciousness that runs and wanders through the rounds of rebirth, not another. Exactly so, Venerable Sir, as I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One. It is this same consciousness that runs and wanders through the rounds of rebirth, not another. What is that consciousness, Sati? Venerable Sir, it is that which speaks and feels and experiences here and there the result of good and bad action. Misguided men, this is a big slap in the face if the Buddha would say that to you, that you're misguided. To whom have you ever known me to teach the Dhamma in that way? Misguided men, in many discourses have I not stated consciousness to be dependently arisen, since without a condition there is no origination of consciousness? But you, misguided man, have misrepresented us by your wrong grasp and injured yourself and stored up much demerit, for this will lead to your harm and suffering for a long time. And after 2,600 years, we still remember him because of his wrong view. Then the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, Monks, what do you think? Has this monk Sati, son of a fisherman, kindled even a spark of wisdom in this Dhamma and discipline? How could he, Venerable Sir? No, Venerable Sir, they replied. When this was said, the monk Sati, son of a fisherman, sat silent, dismayed, with shoulders drooping and a head down, glum without response. Then, knowing this, the Blessed One told him, Misguided man, you will be recognized for your pernicious view. I shall question the monks on this matter. Then the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, Monks, do you understand the Dhamma taught by me, as this monk Sati, son of a fisherman, does when he misrepresents us with his wrong grasp and injures himself and stores up much demerit? Who's going to say yes to that? No, Venerable Sir. For in many discourses the Blessed One had stated consciousness to be dependently arisen, since without a condition there is no origination of consciousness. Good, monks. It is good that you understand the Dhamma taught by me thus. For in many discourses I have stated consciousness to be dependently arisen, since without a condition there is no origination of consciousness. But this monk Sati, son of a fisherman, misrepresents us by his wrong grasp and injures himself and stores up much demerit. For this will lead to his harm and suffering of this misguided man for a long time. Monks, consciousness is reckoned by the particular condition upon which it arises. When consciousness arises dependent on the eye and forms, it is reckoned as eye consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the ear and sounds, it is reckoned as ear consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the nose and odors, it is reckoned as nose consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the tongue and flavors, it is reckoned as tongue consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the body and tangibles, it is reckoned as body consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the mind and mind objects, it is reckoned as mind consciousness. Excuse me. Just as a fire is reckoned by the particular condition upon which it burns. When fire burns dependent on logs, it is reckoned as a log fire. When fire burns dependent on faggots, it is reckoned as a faggot fire. When fire burns dependent on grass, it is reckoned as a grass fire. When fire burns dependent on cow dung, it is reckoned as cow dung fire. When fire burns dependent on chaff, it is reckoned as a chaff fire. When fire burns dependent on rubbish, it is reckoned as a rubbish fire. So too, consciousness is reckoned by the particular condition dependent upon which it arises. When consciousness arises dependent on the I and forms, it is reckoned as I consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the ear and sounds, it is reckoned as ear consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the nose and odors, it is reckoned as nose consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the tongue and flavors, it is reckoned as tongue consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the body and tangibles, it is reckoned as body consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on mind and objects, it is reckoned as mind consciousness. This is a general questionnaire on being. Monks, do you see this has come to be? The monks say, yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, do you see its origin occurs with that as nutriment? The monks say, yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, do you see with the cessation of that nutriment what has come to be is subject to cessation? Yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, does doubt arise when one is uncertain thus? Has this come to be or not? Yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, does doubt arise when one is uncertain thus? Does its origination occur with that as nutriment or not? Yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, does doubt arise when one is uncertain thus? With the cessation of that nutriment, is what has come to be subject to cessation or not? Yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, is doubt abandoned in one who sees it as it actually is with proper wisdom? This has come to be. Yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, is doubt abandoned in one who sees it as it actually is with proper wisdom thus? Its origination occurs with that as nutriment? Yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, is doubt abandoned in one who sees as it actually is with proper wisdom thus? With the cessation of nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation? Yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, are you free from doubt here?
Yes, Venerable Sir.
This has come to be. Now.
Yes, Venerable Sir.
Monks, are you free from doubt here? Its origination occurs with that as nutriment.
Yes, Venerable Sir.
Now what we're doing is he's asking the monks if they're seeing from their own direct knowledge, so that there's no doubt at all that arises.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Nutriment is craving?
Nutriment is many different things, and you'll get to hear about it in a moment. There's 4 different kinds of nutriment. Monks, are you free from doubt here? With the cessation of that nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation.
Yes, Venerable Sir.
Monks, has it been seen well by you as it actually is with proper wisdom this has come to be?
Yes, Venerable Sir.
Monks, has it been seen well by you as it actually is with proper wisdom thus? Its origination occurs with that as nutriment.
Yes, Venerable Sir.
Monks, has it been seen well by you as it actually is with proper wisdom thus? With the cessation of that nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation.
Yes, Venerable Sir.
Monks, purified and bright as this view is, if you adhere to it, cherish it, treasure it, and treat it as a possession, would you then understand that the Dhamma that has been taught as similar to a raft, being for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of grasping?
Venerable Sir.
Monks, purified and bright as this view is, if you do not adhere to it, cherish it, treasure it, and treat it as a possession. Now, why are we saying this? Because you can become attached to the links of dependent origination, and you're starting to see them as this is me, these are mine, I've got them, I really understand them. Who has what? Right? Would you then understand the Dhamma that has been taught as similar to a raft, being for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of grasping?
Yes, Venerable Sir.
Okay, now we go to nutriment and dependent origination. Monks, there are these 4 kinds of nutriment for the maintenance of being that already have come to be, and for the support of those about to become to be, or about to come to be. What for? They are physical food, that's a kind of nutriment, gross or subtle, contact as the second, formations as the third, and consciousness as the 4th. These are all different kinds of nutriment. He's got a question, but he doesn't want it to come out. He's almost biting his lip.
We'll go into more detail on these things.
In a little bit, you'll see. Now, monks, these 4 kinds of nutriment have what as their source? What as their origin? From what are they born and produced? These 4 kinds of nutriment have craving as their source, craving as their origin. They are born and produced from craving. And this craving has what as its source? What as its origin? From what is it born and produced? Craving has feeling as its source. Feeling as its origin. It is born and produced from feeling. And this feeling has what as its source? What is its origin? What are they born? From what are they born and produced? Feeling has contact as its source, contact as its origin. It is born and produced from contact. And this contact has what as its source, what as its origin, from what is it born and produced? Contact has the sixfold base as its source, the sixfold base as its origin. And the sixfold base are born and produced. And this sixfold base has what as its source? The sixfold base has mentality, materiality as its source. And this mentality, materiality has what as its source? Mentality, materiality has consciousness as its source. And this consciousness has what as its source? Consciousness has formations as its source. And these formations have what as their source? What as their origin? From what are they born and produced? Formations have ignorance as their source, ignorance as their origin. They are born and produced from ignorance. Ignorance of what?
Dependent origination.
Or noble truth.
Four Noble Truths. Always when you hear the word ignorance in the suttas, it's referring to not knowing or ignoring the way the Four Noble Truths actually arise. Yes. Of course.
So, from the sutta, this paper starts with birth, habitual tendency, and clinging. But the Buddha starts it with craving, is that correct?
No. I'll get into that again in a little bit from another book. Okay?
Okay. Do you understand the question?
Yes, I do. Now, one of the things that I did when I was at a monastery with a very, very senior monk, and I happened to be giving this discourse, was I talked about what does ignorance mean. Now, a lot of people think that ignorance means being stupid, and it doesn't. The core of the word ignorance is the verb to ignore, to not see how the Four Noble Truths actually work. And we'll get into more of that in a little while. Everything is on down the road. Okay, we're going to go into the forward exposition of arising. So, monks, with ignorance as condition,
Formation come to be.
with formations as condition,
Consciousness come to be.
with consciousness as condition,
Mentality, materiality come to be.
with mentality, materiality as condition,
Sixfold come to be.
with the sixfold base as condition,
Contact comes to be.
with contact as condition,
Feeling comes to be.
with feeling as condition,
Craving comes to be.
with craving as condition,
Habitual
and
tendency
clinging comes to be. With clinging as condition,
Habitual tendency comes to be.
with habitual tendency as condition,
Birth comes to be.
with birth as condition,
Aging and death,
sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair
comes
comes
to
to
be.
be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering.
I threw them off because it's a arising.
Oh. The reverse order questionnaire on arising. with birth as condition, aging and death, so it was said. Now, do aging and death have birth as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case?
Aging
And death have birth as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case. With birth as condition, aging and death. With habitual tendency as condition, birth, so it was said. Now, does birth have habitual tendency as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case?
Birth
has
has habitual
tendency as condition,
Venerable Sir.
thus we take it in this case. With habitual tendency as condition, birth comes to be. With clinging as condition, habitual tendency comes to be, so it was said. Now, does habitual tendency have clinging as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case? And before we continue on, what I'm doing right now is I'm teaching you in the classic way that the Buddha would teach, with all of the repeating, and then you come in and repeat after me. And then I will stop and give you the first part, and then you continue on. So it's easiest if you do it out loud, because it gets stuck.
You're going to have to learn it, because it's not on the paper.
Well, but that's, this part is okay. We'll get to other parts where we'll go through this whole list again, forwards and backwards in all different kinds of ways. So you can use the paper then. With clinging as condition, habitual tendency comes to be, so it was said. Now, monks, does habitual tendency have clinging as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case?
Habitual tendency has clinging as condition, Venerable Sir.
Thus we take it in this case.
With clinging as condition, habitual tendency comes to be.
With craving as condition, clinging comes to be, so it was said. Now, monks, does clinging have craving as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case?
Clinging has craving as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case. With craving as condition, clinging comes to be.
With feeling as condition, craving comes to be, so it was said. Now, monks, does craving have feeling as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case?
Craving has feeling as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case. With feeling as condition, craving comes to be.
With contact as condition, feeling comes to be, so it was said. Now, monks, does feeling have contact as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case?
Feeling has contact as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case. With contact as condition, feeling comes to be.
With the sixfold base as condition, contact comes to be, so it was said. Now, monks, does contact have the sixfold base as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case?
Contact has the sixfold base as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case.
With the sixfold base as condition,
Contact comes to be.
With mentality, materiality as condition, the sixfold base comes to be, so it was said. Now, monks, does the sixfold base have mentality, materiality as condition or not, or how do you take it in this case? The
Sixfold base has mentality, materiality as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case. With mentality, materiality as condition, the sixfold base case comes to be.
With consciousness as condition, mentality, materiality comes to be. So it was said, now monks, does mentality, materiality have consciousness as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case?
Mentality, materiality has consciousness as condition or not. Thus we take it in this case. With consciousness as condition, mentality, materiality comes to be.
With formations as condition, consciousness comes to be. So it was said, now monks, does consciousness have formations as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case?
Consciousness has formations as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case. With formations as condition, consciousness comes to be.
With ignorance as condition, formations comes to be. So it was said, now monks, do formations have ignorance as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case?
Formations have ignorance as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case. With ignorance as condition, formations come to be.
The recapitulation on arising. Good monks. So you say thus, and I also say thus. When this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises, that is. With ignorance as condition,
Formations come to be.
with formations as condition,
Consciousness comes to be.
with consciousness as condition,
Mentality, materiality comes to be.
with mentality, materiality as condition,
The sixfold base comes to be.
with the sixfold base as condition,
Contact comes to be.
with contact as condition,
Feeling comes to be.
with feeling as condition,
Craving comes to be.
with craving as condition,
Clinging comes to be.
with clinging as condition,
Habitual tendencies comes to be.
with habitual tendency as condition,
Birth comes to be.
with birth as condition,
Aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair come to be.
Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. The forward exposition on cessation. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes the cessation of formations. With the cessation of formation, cessation of with the cessation of consciousness, cessation of
Mentality, materiality.
with the cessation of mentality, materiality, cessation of
Sixfold base.
with the cessation of the sixfold base, cessation of
Contact.
with the cessation of contact, cessation of
Feeling.
with the cessation of feeling, cessation of
Craving.
with the cessation of craving, cessation of
Clinging.
with the cessation of clinging, cessation of
Habitual tendencies.
with the cessation of habitual tendency, cessation of
Birth.
with the cessation of birth.
Aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair cease.
Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Now we go into the reverse questionnaire on the cessation, but I'm going to do it fast, so you don't have to repeat everything. With the cessation of birth, cessation of aging and death, so it was said, now monks, do aging and death cease with the cessation of birth or not? Or how do you take it in this case? Aging and death cease with the cessation of birth, venerable sir. Thus we take it in this case, with the cessation of birth, cessation of aging and death. With the cessation of habitual tendencies, cessation of birth. With the cessation of clinging, cessation of habitual tendency. With the cessation of craving, cessation of clinging. Now this is an important aspect, because every time you 6R, you're letting go of the craving. When you let go of the craving, that means clinging won't arise at that moment. Right? Right? So every time you 6R, you notice that when you relax and start smiling and come back to your object of meditation, it's easy to come back to your object of meditation, because you don't have any craving in your mind at that time. Your mind is pure. You don't have the clinging, the thinking about, the stories, the concepts arising at that time. This is why you want to get into the habit of making your 6Rs flow. It needs to be a flow. It's not individual things. So that way you're going to be taking this pure mind right back to your object of meditation. You're purifying your mind every time you let go of craving. Okay. With the cessation of feeling, cessation of craving. With the cessation of contact, cessation of feeling. With the cessation of the sixfold base, cessation of contact. With the cessation of mentality, materiality, cessation of the sixfold base. With the cessation of consciousness, cessation of mentality, materiality. With the cessation of formation, cessation of consciousness. With the cessation of ignorance, cessation of formation. So it was said, now, do formation cease with the cessation of ignorance or not, or how do you take it in this case? Formation cease with the cessation of ignorance. Venerable sir, that's how we take it in this case. With the cessation of ignorance, cessation of formations. Now we go to the recapitulation on cessation. Good monks, so you say thus, and I also say thus. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. So when you let go of craving, clinging does not come to be. And when clinging doesn't come to be, your habitual tendency doesn't come to be. When your habitual tendency doesn't come to be, birth doesn't come to be. When birth doesn't come to be, aging and death and sorrow and all that other stuff doesn't come to be. So you see how important that is. The 6 R's are the tool to take you to Nibbana. And it won't wear out as long as you use it. That is, with the cessation of ignorance comes the cessation of formation. With the cessation of formation, cessation of consciousness. With the cessation of consciousness, cessation of
mentality, materiality.
With the cessation of mentality, materiality, cessation of
Sixfold base.
With the cessation of the sixfold base, cessation of
Contact.
With the cessation of contact, cessation of
Feeling.
With the cessation of feeling, cessation of
Craving.
With the cessation of craving, cessation of
Clinging.
With the cessation of clinging, cessation of
Habitual tendencies.
With the cessation of habitual tendencies, cessation of
Birth.
With the cessation of birth,
Aging
aging
and
and
death,
death,
sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair.
Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Okay. Now we'll go to another book. We'll come back to this one in just a moment. Now, when the Buddha was talking about the teaching, he said that there is two ways of teaching. He says to the monks, I will teach you the wrong way and the right way. Listen to that and attend closely. I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, those monks replied. The Blessed One said this, and what monks is the wrong way? With ignorance as condition, formations come to be. With formations as condition, consciousness comes to be. So he's talking about the arising of all of these different things, and that's the wrong way to teach. Why is it the wrong way to teach? Because that's not the way you learn it with your meditation. Right? When you get a hindrance arise, and you 6R it, and you notice right before that hindrance arose, something arose right before that. And then your mind is distracted and you notice that and you 6R there, you're going backwards. Okay, you're going on the cessation of these things. You're learning the links of dependent origination. I'm giving you the names right now. But you will be able to recognize these in your own practice. And you will recognize them through the cessation. The cessation of this link, and then you still have distraction, you come back and you see right before that link there was another link that arose, and then you let go of that. Okay, now one of the things that's happening today in the Buddhist world is everybody is very much attached to the idea that everything is suffering. That isn't what the Buddha said. He said there is suffering. Anybody here not know what suffering is? But when I was in Burma, I happened to be around a lot of very big teachers, and they wanted you to eat your food thinking of suffering. And I was he was really a famous monk. He was great at giving discourses. And there was 3 or 4 of us that went to see him. He was a very powerful monk too. It was quite amazing. He could sit in front of a bowl of water and start chanting, and the water would start bubbling like it was on fire. Pretty amazing. Anyway, we sat down and had a meal together. Now, he was such a big monk that we had top-of-the-line food. I mean, it was just absolutely brilliant food. There's no way around it. And he's sitting there, and he's eating, going, dukkha, 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 dukkha. And one of the people that was offering him the food looked over his shoulder and he said, well, I want some of that dukkha. As brilliant as this monk was, he wasn't understanding that the Buddha wanted you to teach the cessation of suffering. He wanted all the monks to teach cessation of suffering, not focus on suffering. I went to one meditation center, and this teacher, every time somebody would come, he would explain Buddhism to him as everything is suffering. And it really kind of got to me. And I'd kind of say, after he went off on his rant a little bit, I'd say, I'd rather focus on the cessation of suffering, wouldn't you? But that's the way it's presented. Now, what this is saying is, if you teach this way, that how all of the suffering arises, you're teaching in the wrong way. What you want to teach is how the cessation of suffering occurs. Nobody has to be told that there's suffering in life. But there is a cause of suffering, and you have to be able to recognize that. What's the cause of suffering? So what do? Let go of that craving. And then you're experiencing the cessation of suffering. And what's the way to the cessation of suffering? That's along with it, but that's in the 6 R's, remember? So, when we're teaching, we want to really recognize that we're doing this to lessen the suffering. How much suffering do you cause yourself? Because you want things to be different than they are. You want things to be the way you want them to be. And because of that, this feeling of dissatisfaction arises as painful. And then there's the, I don't like that. And then there's your story about it. And your habitual tendency is to try to control your feeling with your thoughts. And it doesn't work. And we've been doing that our whole life. Eventually, what will happen is we'll get to a place where we forget the suffering and get distracted and do something else. But when another situation comes up that's similar, the old suffering gets added onto the new suffering, so it really hurts. And we're doing it to ourselves continually. What I'm showing you now is how to let that go. Let go of your old habits. Let go of the ways that you used to cause yourself suffering, and develop happiness in its place, contentment, a balanced mind. Now the spiritual path is kind of interesting because it's not a steady climb up. You'll progress for a little while, and then you'll kind of level off a little bit, and then you have a little dip, and then you start back up again, and you level off, and you have a little dip, and some of you have seen that on this retreat. Now the dip is not any worse than the rise, or the level up. You'll be in this state for a little while, okay? And then your mind says, okay, it's time for you to improve your mindfulness. Let's call out your friends. Now you get to 6R, these guys. And then all of a sudden you're starting to zoom up again. And then you'll hit a little plateau, and then you'll dip down again, and your mind will say, oh, it's time again. Let's do it some more. As you begin to learn more and more, and you start to go deeper in your practice, the roller coaster ride with the emotions starts to level off a little bit, and it turns into just little waves like this, until you become an arahat, things like that. But you'll find out when you get back into your everyday life that the things that really used to bother you aren't such a big deal anymore. So you're starting to learn, and you take the 6 R's with you. It's not just for being here. It's for using when you're out there. Use your 6 R's as often as you can remember, and smile as much as you can remember. Because that helps your mindfulness to be sharper, your mind to be more alert when you have more joy coming up because of your smile. Now, there's another wrong idea that happens. I'm not sure quite where it came from, but a lot of people, they think that the Buddha on his native is enlightenment. That was the first time he ever saw dependent origination. And this sutta proves that that wasn't right. It says, monks, before my enlightenment, while I was still only a bodhisattva, not yet fully enlightened, it occurred to me, alas, this world has fallen into trouble, in that it is born, ages, and dies. It passes away and is reborn. Yet it does not understand the escape from suffering headed by aging and death. When now will an escape be discerned from this suffering headed by aging and death? When, monks, it occurred to me, when what exists does aging and death come to be? By what is aging and death conditioned? Then, monks, through careful attention. Now you have to remember, he'd done a lot of meditation. So when he put his mind to something, he generally came up with the answers. With careful attention, there took place in me a breakthrough by wisdom. When there is birth, aging and death comes to be. Aging and death has birth as its condition. When, monks, it occurred to me, when what exists does birth come to be? And we go through the whole thing. This is how he figured out the links of dependent origination. He had very sharp attention, and he would say, well, when this comes to be, what happens right before that to make that possible? Okay? Now, I was telling you yesterday or the day before, mind is gone, that the Four Noble Truths are in each link of dependent origination. Now I'm going to read a sutta to you that shows you that this is how it happens. At Sāti, monks, this is Samyutta Nidana Samyutta, section 14. It's called Ascetics and Brahmins. Page 543, if you want that one. Monks, as to those ascetics and Brahmins who do not understand things, the origin of these things, the cessation of these things, and the way leading to the cessation of these things. What did I just say? It was the Four Noble Truths right there, wasn't it? What are those things that they do not understand, whose origin they don't understand, whose cessation they don't understand, and the way leading to whose cessation they don't understand? They do not understand aging and death. its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to its cessation. They do not understand birth, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to its cessation. So every link has these Four Noble Truths in them. They are intimately intertwined. You can't take one without the other. Okay, then after going through all of the dependent originations, then it says, these Brahmins and ascetics I do not consider to be ascetics among ascetics, or Brahmin among Brahmins. And these venerable ones do not, by realizing it for themselves with direct knowledge, in this very life dwell in the goal of asceticism or the goal of Brahmanhood. It means that you cannot attain Nibbana unless you have seen the links of dependent origination. And right now, there's an awful lot of people that are putting the emphasis on seeing impermanence, suffering, and not self, and calling that the end result, the Nibbana. In the Mahavagga, which I didn't bring with me, it has a statement that is really important. And it said, a meditator can see one or all of the characteristics of existence, that means impermanent, suffering, and not self, without ever seeing the links of dependent origination. But when you see the links of dependent origination, you will see all of the links of, or characteristics of existence. You see impermanence because the links are constantly arising and passing away. You see the suffering in that. You see the impersonal nature of that. So people that actually focus on the three characteristics, they aren't going as deeply as they could. And take a look at the links of dependent origination.
Are these three marks like different viewpoints on the same thing?
No.
The three.
Everything in existence is impermanent. It's a form of suffering because of that impermanence, because it's changing. And everything in existence is impersonal.
Well, it has to be, right? Because it
has to be.
You can't
Of course
come
it
up with
has to
anything
be.
that isn't.
Because you've been spoiled by me telling you this over and over and over again. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Stick up from that. The balancing point of what he said is that, I'm like, okay, isn't the balancing point of what you said, how many times mentioned in the text, it states that to see dependent origination is to see the Dhamma, and the Dhamma, to see the Dhamma is to see dependent origination, because that's driven home so many times through the text.
And what is your question?
When it says this, isn't that like the balancing point of what you say?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And when you start actually seeing the links of dependent origination, you'll realize that of course that's true. You're seeing impermanence. You're seeing each one of these links arise and pass away. You're seeing the dissatisfaction of that. And you're seeing that there is no controller. There is only this process. But as to those ascetics and Brahmins who understand these things, the origin of these things, the cessation of these things, and the way leading to the cessation of these things, what are those things that they understand, whose origin they understand, whose cessation they understand, and the way leading to whose cessation they understand? They understand birth, they understand aging and death, its origin, cessation, and way leading to its cessation. And then it goes through all of the links again. These are the things that they understand, whose origin they understand, whose cessation they understand, and the way leading to whose cessation they understand. These I consider to be ascetics among ascetics, and Brahmins among Brahmins. And these venerable ones, by realizing it for themselves with direct knowledge, in this very life, enter and dwell in the goal of asceticism and the goal of Brahmanhood. So that's pretty conclusive, that it says you need to see dependent origination and you need to see the Four Noble Truths. That's the backbone of this practice. A few days ago when you first got here, you heard me mention dependent origination a little bit, and as we go more and more, you hear me talking about it more and more, so that you can really start to grasp. When a feeling arises, craving comes up right after that. If you don't 6R it there, then you have clinging. That's all of your thoughts, all of your concepts, all of your opinions, all of your ideas. And this is where you really grab onto the idea that this is my concepts. These are my opinions. I'm right. Okay? And we get into our habitual habit with that. And then we have birth of action, and then we have sorrow and lamentation and pain and grief and all of that other stuff. When you are able to see feeling arise, and your mind starts to be a little bit more alert because of letting go of all of the hindrances and such, you'll be able to see contact arise right before the feeling. And when you see contact arise, you 6R it right there. When you 6R the contact, then feeling won't arise. And craving won't arise. And clinging won't arise. And all of the rest. What you're doing with the meditation is you're learning to recognize things more quickly. You're learning to see this really is an impersonal process. There's nobody home. It's not me, it's not mine. Only time it turns into mine is when the hindrance arises. Then it's me. And then I'm causing myself pain by holding on to that. Now there's another part in this sutta that I like very much, and it tells you how to look for a teacher. And it says at Sāti, monks, one who does not know and see, as it actually is, aging and death, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to its cessation, should search for a teacher in order to know this as it really is. Somebody that can explain this whole process to you, so you're able to recognize it. And how are you supposed to train? Okay? One who does not know and see as it really is, aging and death, And all of the other, their origin, cessation, and way leading to their cessation, should practice the training in order to know this as it really is. That's what you're doing right now. And I must say, I'm very, very pleased with how well you're doing. I'm not kidding you. So, this is a rather important aspect of this teaching. And at first it sounds super complicated. But as you go deeper from one jhana to the next, you're teaching yourself. Okay? And you're teaching yourself these links. Your mindfulness and your awareness becomes sharper and sharper as you go.
And I know you've said this, but I'll use the aid as an excuse. Describe formation. Explain formation.
The formations, there's three kinds of formation. Verbal formation, bodily formation, and mental formation. Now the formations are the potential for these things to arise.
But the formation's linking.
Yeah, the formations in. It's the potential for these three things to arise. Anything else? Thinking about it. Do you have any more?
No.
Okay, I'm just asking.
I only have 2 more to go.
That's your limitation, not mine.
I'm very flexible with my limitations.
Okay, now we go to personal knowledge. This is always an interesting thing. Monks, knowing and seeing in this way, would you run back to the past thus? Were we in the past? Were we not in the past? What were we in the past? How were we in the past? Having been what did we become in the past? Now, if you see dependent origination and the links, would you think about these things?
Back in 38.
I'm back in 38. I wish I was back at 38.
Tell me where you were reading from. You're back in sutta number 38.
So if you saw the links of dependent origination, what were we in the past? It doesn't make sense. Even, why would I answer your even questions of that? No, Venerable Sir. That's what the monks answered to that. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you run forward to the future thus? Shall we be in the future? Shall we not be in the future? What shall we be in the future? How shall we be in the future? Having been what shall we become in the future? Those kind of questions wouldn't even come up. Why? Because you're in the present moment. No, Venerable Sir, knowing and seeing in this way, would you now be inwardly perplexed about the present thus? Am I? Am I not? What am I? How am I? Where has this being come from? Where will it go? Did those kind of questions come up and cause you to have doubt? No. Why? Because all of these kind of questions are talking about personal belief system. But when you see the links of dependent origination and you see they arise by themselves, there's no controller. There's only this impersonal process arising and passing away. Then, these kind of questions wouldn't even come into your mind. You would be in the present moment, you'd stay in the present moment. Monks, knowing and seeing in this way, would you speak thus? The teacher is respected by us. We speak as we do out of respect for the teacher. No, Venerable Sir, why not? Doesn't matter whether you respect the teacher or not if you have direct knowledge. There's no question in your mind that you're speaking the truth because you know it because of your direct experience. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you speak thus? The recluse says this, and so do other recluses. But we do not speak thus. No, Venerable Sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you acknowledge another teacher? When you've done all the work yourself? You taught yourself? You're going to acknowledge somebody else? No, Venerable Sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you return to the observances, tumultuous debates and auspicious signs of ordinary recluses and Brahmins, having them as the core of the holy life? I don't think so. Do you speak only of what you have known, seen, and understood for yourselves? Yes, Venerable Sir. Good monks, so you have been guided by me with this Dhamma, which is visible here and now, immediately effective, inviting inspection, onward leading, to be experienced by the wise for themselves. For it was reference to this that it was said, monks, this Dhamma is visible here and now, immediately effective. That's a real important part of this Dhamma, because you don't have to practice half your lifetime for your meditation to be effective. It's immediately effective. When you practice the 6 hours, you see the benefit right there and you go, oh, this works. This is pretty good. It's right there. It doesn't take you a week to find out. You find out in 1 day. You find out in 1 hour. If you practice it the way that it's been suggested. Inviting inspection, onward leading to be experienced by the wise for themselves. Now, every time it says wise or wisdom, it's talking about dependent origination. The round of existences, conception to maturity. The conception of an embryo in a womb takes place through the union of 3 things. Here there is the union of the mother and father, but it is not the mother's season, and the being to be reborn is not present. In this case, there is no conception of an embryo in a womb. Here there is the union of the mother and the father, and it is the mother's season, but the being to be reborn is not present. In this case, too, there's no conception of an embryo in the womb. But when there is the union of the mother and the father, and it is the mother's season, and the being to be reborn is present, through the union of these 3 things, the conception of an embryo in a womb takes place. The mother then carries the embryo in her womb for 9 or 10 months. I started thinking about that. the reason it says 9 or 10 months, it depends on whether you're using the moon calendar or the sun calendar. If it's a sun calendar, it's 9 months. If it's a moon calendar, it's 10 months.
Actually, you can carry a baby 10 months.
I understand that, but
On the
that's what
12th
this is, that's what this is. Thank you. Okay, then the mother carries the embryo in the womb for 9 or 10 months with much anxiety as a burden. Then at the end of 9 or 10 months, the mother gives birth with much anxiety as a burden. Then when the child is born, she nourishes it with her blood, for the mother's breast milk is called blood in the Noble One's discipline. Now, one of the things that happened when I was in Malaysia was I started to get a reputation of someone that teaches loving kindness. So there were people that were coming to me and finding out about loving kindness. One of the things that I learned that you can do is you can hold a bottle of water with the top on it, of course. But I hold a bottle of water and radiate loving kindness, and water holds memory. Okay? So what was happening was women that were becoming pregnant started coming to me and asking me for a blessing. And what I would do would be hold a bottle of water, and I would radiate loving kindness into that, and then I would give them the bottle of water, and I would say, I want you to take some of that water every day, a little bit, and massage the baby, and send love to the baby while you're doing that. And then if you feel a little bit sick to your stomach, take a sip of the water. Now, they started doing that, and they started feeling very much at ease. And they would have their baby very easily. And when the baby came out, the baby would be smiling and happy. I mean, it was amazing. But there was a couple of reasons for that to happen. One was I was teaching the mother that at about 6 months, the baby in the womb is able to have thoughts, but they can't detect the difference between their thoughts and their mother's thoughts. So I was having them send loving and kind thoughts to their baby while they were touching it very kindly. And I was having them practice loving kindness for the last 3 months of their pregnancy. They didn't have a lot of fear and anxiety when it came time to give birth. And the babies all turned out to be rather odd. They'd do things like sleep all night and not cry a lot, and they were real happy. So these are some of the things that you can do if you know somebody that is sick and not feeling good. Radiate some loving kindness into some water and give them the water and say, here, drink this. Or take this and rub it on your hurt part, wherever that happens to be. This is a form of generosity that is very helpful for a lot of people. After I started doing this in Malaysia, there started to be a stampede of pregnant women coming to me. They must have been 25 or 30. I have no idea of the actual number of women that had babies that had used the metta water that I radiated, so I started calling them my babies. Then I thought, no, I can't do that. I'm a monk. Oh no, this is not a good thing. So we started calling them the metta babies. I'm going to do that to my own water. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And when you start feeling a cold coming on, especially drink your own metta water and share it.
I'm bringing my water.
Okay.
One-on-one.
When he grows up and his faculties mature, the child plays at such games as toy plows, tip cat. I don't know what tip cat is. Is it something?
I wonder if it's like tip cow.
Somersaults, toy windmills, toy measures, and I love this one, toy cars. What do you think a car looked like during the time of the Buddha? What kind of motor did he have? I think this is a misspelling. It's supposed to be cart. And toy bow and arrow. When he grows up and his faculties mature still further, the youth enjoys himself provided and endowed with the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, with forms cognizable by the eye that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire, and inviting lust. Sounds cognizable by the ear that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. Odors cognizable by the nose that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. Flavors cognizable with the tongue that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. Tangibles cognizable by the body that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. The continuation of the round. On seeing a form with the eye, he lusts after it if it is pleasing. He dislikes it if it is unpleasing. He abides with mindfulness of the body unestablished. With a limited mind, he does not understand as it actually is the deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom, wherein those evil and wholesome states cease without remainder. Engaging as he is in favoring and opposing, whatever feeling he feels, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, he delights in that feeling, welcomes it, and remains holding to it. As he does so, delight arises in him. Now, delight in feelings is craving and clinging. With his craving as condition, clinging arises. With clinging as condition, habitual tendency arises. With habitual tendency as condition, birth arises. With birth as condition, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair come to be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. On hearing a sound with the ear, on smelling an odor with the nose, on tasting a flavor with the tongue, on touching a tangible with the body, on cognizing a mind object with mind, he lusts after it if it is pleasing. He dislikes it if it is unpleasing. Now, delight in feelings is craving and clinging. With his craving as condition, clinging comes to be. With clinging as condition, habitual tendency comes to be. With habitual tendency as condition, birth comes to be. With birth as condition, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair come to be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. The ending of the round, the gradual training. Here, monks, a Tathagata appears in the world, accomplished and fully enlightened. This goes to Sutta number 27 if you're interested. Oh, that's too far. Okay, perfect and true knowledge and conduct, sublime knower of worlds, incomparable, leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, awakened and blessed. He declares this world with its gods, its maras and its brahmanas, this generation with its recluses and brahmins, its princes and its people, which he has himself realized with direct knowledge. He teaches the Dhamma good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, with the right meaning and phrasing. And he reveals a holy life that is utterly perfect and pure. A householder or householder's son, or one born in some other clan, hears that Dhamma. On hearing the Dhamma, he acquires faith in the Tathagata. Possessing that faith, he considers thus: household life is crowded and dusty. Life gone forth is open wide. It is not easy while living in a home to lead a holy life utterly perfect and pure as a polished shell. Suppose I shave off my hair and beard and put on the yellow robe and go forth from the home life into homelessness. On a later occasion, abandoning a small or large portion, abandoning a small or large circle of relatives, he shaves off his hair and beard, puts on the yellow robe, and he goes forth from the home life into homelessness, having gone forth and possessing the monk's training and way of life. Abandoning the killing of living beings, he abstains from killing living beings. With rod and weapon laid down, or laid aside, gentle and kindly, he abides compassionate to all living beings. Abandoning the taking of what is not given, he abstains from taking what is not given. Now this is talking about for monks. Remember this part. Only taken what is given, expecting only what is given. By not stealing, he abides in purity. This is the part I'm talking about. That's for monks. Abandoning in celibacy, he observes celibacy. Living apart, abstaining from the vulgar practice of sexual intercourse. Abandoning false speech, he abstains from false speech. He speaks truth, adheres to truth, is trustworthy and reliable, one who is no deceiver of the world. Abandoning malicious speech, he abstains from malicious speech. He does not repeat elsewhere what he has heard here in order to divide those people from these. Nor does he repeat to these people what he has heard elsewhere in order to divide these people from those. Thus he is one who reunites those who are divided, a promoter of friendship who enjoys concord, rejoices in concord, delights in concord, a speaker of words that promote concord. Abandoning harsh speech, he abstains from harsh speech. He speaks such words as are gentle, pleasing to the ear, and lovable, as go to the heart, are courteous, desired by many, and agreeable to many. Abandoning gossip, he abstains from gossip. He speaks at the right time, speaks what is fact, speaks on what is good, speaks on the Dhamma and discipline. At the right time, he speaks such words as are worth recording, reasonable, moderate, and beneficial. He abstains from injuring seeds and plants. He practices eating only in one part of the day. Abstain from eating at night and outside the proper time. He abstains from dancing, singing, music, and theatrical shows. He abstains from wearing garlands, smartening himself with scent, and embellishing himself with unguents. He abstained from high and luxurious couches. He abstained from accepting gold and silver. He abstained from accepting raw grain. He abstained from accepting raw meat. He abstained from accepting women and girls. He abstained from accepting men and women slaves. He abstained from accepting goats and sheep. He abstained from accepting fowl and pigs. He abstained from accepting elephant, cattle, horses, and mares. He abstained from accepting fields and land. He abstained from going on errands and running messages. He abstained from buying and selling. He abstained from false weights, false measures, and false metals. He abstained from cheating, deceiving, defrauding, trickery. He abstained from wounding, murdering, binding, brigandage, plunder, and violence. He becomes content to protect his body with alms food to maintain his stomach, and wherever he goes, he sets out only with these with him, and a pickup truck for all of the books and computers and printers and that stuff. Such as a bird, wherever he goes, flies with his wings as his only burden. So too the monk becomes content with robes to protect his body and with alms food to maintain his stomach. Wherever he goes, he sets out taking only these with him. Possessing the aggregate of noble virtue, experiences within himself a bliss that is blameless. On seeing a form with the eye, he does not grasp at its signs and features. What does that mean? Grasp at the signs and features. Say it,
Try to own it, want it.
when you grasp at the signs and features, hey, this is a good book. I gotta take a look at this. Ah, this is a great book. Oh, it's all right. I remember when I had a book like this one time. What are you doing? Grasping at its signs and features. Do you understand? When you grasp at its signs and features, it means that you're not being mindful, you're identifying with your thoughts and feelings, and therein lies your craving and clinging and all of this other stuff that causes suffering. That's what happens when you get involved with grasping at signs and features. Since if he left the eye faculty unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness, I want it, and grief, I don't want it, might invade him. He practices the way of its restraint. Why? Takes sorrow. He guards the eye faculty. He undertakes the restraint of the eye faculty on hearing the sound with the ear, on smelling an odor with the nose, on tasting a flavor with the tongue, on touching a tangible with the body, on cognizing a mind object with mind. He does not grasp at its signs and features. Don't get involved with the story. Since if he left the mind faculty unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade him. So how do you practice restraint? Sorry. He guards the mind faculty, he undertakes the restraint of the mind faculty. Possessing this noble restraint of the faculties, he experiences within himself a bliss that is unsullied. He becomes one who acts in full awareness when going forward and returning, who acts in full awareness when looking ahead and looking away, who acts in full awareness when flexing and extending his limbs, who acts in full awareness when wearing his robe and carrying his outer robe and bowl, who acts in full awareness when eating, drinking, consuming food and tasting, who acts in full awareness when defecating and urinating, who acts in full awareness when walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, talking, and keeping silent, possessing this aggregate of noble virtue, and this noble restraint of the faculties, and possessing this noble mindfulness and full awareness. He resorts to a secluded resting place, the forest, the root of a tree, a mountain, a ravine, a hillside cave, a charnel ground, a jungle thicket, an open space, a heap of straw. On returning from his alms round after his meal, he sits down, folding his legs crosswise, sitting with his body erect, and establishing mindfulness before him. Abandoning covetousness for the world, he abides with a mind free from covetousness. He purifies his mind from covetousness. This is the ironic mind we're talking about, the hindrances here. Abandoning ill will and hatred, he abides with a mind free from ill will, compassionate for the welfare of all living beings. He purifies his mind from ill will and hatred. Abandoning sloth and torpor, he abides free from sloth and torpor, mindful and fully aware. He purifies his mind from sloth and torpor. Abandoning restlessness and remorse, he abides unagitated with a mind inwardly peaceful. He purifies his mind from restlessness and remorse. Abandoning doubt, he abides having gone beyond doubt, unperplexed about wholesome states. He purifies his mind from doubt. Having abandoned these 5 hindrances, imperfections of mind that weaken wisdom, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters upon and abides in the first jhana. With the stilling of thinking and examining thought, he enters upon and abides in the second jhana. With the fading away of joy, he enters upon and abides in the third jhana. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, he enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. On seeing a form with the eye, he does not lust after it if it is pleasing. He does not dislike it if it's unpleasing. He abides with mindfulness of body established, with an immeasurable mind. He understands as it actually is the deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom, wherein these evil unwholesome states cease without remainder. Having thus abandoned favoring and opposing whatever feeling he feels, whether pleasant or painful or neither painful nor pleasant, he does not delight in that feeling, welcome it, or remain holding to it. As he does not do so, delight in feeling ceases in him. With the cessation of that delight, cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging, cessation of habitual tendency. With the cessation of habitual tendency, cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. On hearing a sound with the ear, on smelling an odor with the nose, on tasting a flavor with the tongue, on touching a tangible with the body, on cognizing a mind object with mind. He does not lust after it if it is pleasing, and he does not dislike it if it's unpleasing. With the cessation of his delight comes the cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging, cessation of habitual tendency. With the cessation of habitual tendency, cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Monks, remember this deliverance through the destruction of craving as taught by me in brief.
Does he have a long version?
Oh, yeah. It's all night. But the monk Sati, son of a fisherman, is caught up in a vast net of craving, in a trammel of craving. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So now you have more and more a feeling of what dependent origination is. Tomorrow night, I'm going to ask Sister Kema to read a sutta to you. This particular sutta has a lot of repetition in it. And you're going to hear it all. When you listen to this particular sutta, don't let your mind ho-hum and think about other things. This is an incredibly powerful sutta. And there were 60 monks, when they listened to the Buddha give this discourse, became arahats. That's how powerful this particular sutta is. It can happen for you.
I'm sorry for ignorance to succeed. I have a question, which you may or may not want to answer at this point. What gets rebirthed?
Kick back and relax.
Well, let me explain it to you this way. You are continually being born and dying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, every moment is like that. It's a birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. There is a life continually in that. Because of past actions, karma.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not the same person that you were when you were 10 years old.
Or even who I was yesterday.
Or even at the start of this Dhamma talk. So, with that in mind, think about your question again. It's just a continuum.
Are you wanting it in
If
assumption?
there's no self, there's not a self. And the Buddha did not talk about soul.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Assuming that I am not gone through this whole dependent of cessation or dependent origination, something's coming back for rebirth.
Because of past action.
Yes, I know the why.
And
Question
that
is for what?
The life continuum. No, leave me alone. What is it that is reborn today? You're continually being reborn. What is it that is reborn? Is that you? Or is it a process?
Keep going.
Keep going.
Thank you.
You
I'm sure, this is not an unusual question.
It is not unusual, but it is difficult to explain. people come to me and they ask me this question, and they also ask me about past lives. And they try to use that as the excuse to have a permanent self somewhere in there. I'm going to die and be reborn, and that's what happened.
There's no permanent self.
There is no permanent self, and that's the truth. But there's continually arising of this whole process. Dependent origination happens in the heavenly realms as much as it happens here. So there is different realms that you can be reborn in, but what is it that gets reborn
That was my question.
is the life continuum. There is a string, just like there's a string today. You were born and died how many times today? What held those things together? Craving holds those things together. Ignorance holds those things together. Wrong view holds those things together. And this is why an arahat, when we die, there is no more coming to any other state of being, because there's nothing that's holding the aggregates together. The glue for the aggregates is craving. I understand.
And the karma, did that be?
The karma is something that helps along the life continuum. It helps
Right,
keep
it's
it
a
going.
thread of that.
The energy that runs on the line? Karma.
So would the short answer be the 5 aggregates
Yeah,
is what's reborn?
but they're not the same aggregates as they were.
Oh, so an aggregation of aggregates.
No, an aggravation of that.
You want to try to make it clearer?
Well, usually how I answer that question, if you ask it, you're not ready for the answer.
Oh.
It's not a cop-out, because it's basically what it really comes down to is that it's more experience. So the more you do the practice, that question no longer becomes a question, because you understand it experientially. It cannot, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, in my experience, is it cannot be explained in words.
It really can.
I understand, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense, because no teacher's been able to answer, I mean, that I understand, I'm sure they answer.
This can't be said, in my experience, can't be.
It's like
I know what he's trying to say.
Yeah, but what he was trying to
But
say is
you
exactly what
can't
you said.
explain it
In words,
in
that makes
words.
sense. That makes sense.
You'll never
It's
get
like
it.
trying to
It's like
explain
this.
what is nibbana.
Right.
It's unconditioned, that's all I can say about it. But I also
So understand, it's almost like what you're saying is experientially, you understand what that thread is.
Yes.
If I'm connecting.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
The other way I like to explain it is, I can explain to you what chocolate tastes like over and over and over and over again, but until you taste it,
Makes sense.
you may agree or disagree, but I've already told you what chocolate tastes like.
Isn't that the one about the fish trying to explain the land and the turtle trying to explain the water to the fish? Or no, the
Fish trying to explain.
The tortoise trying to explain the land to the fish and the fish trying to explain the water to the tortoise. Yeah.
Something like that. But I had another insight as a way to explain what Nibbana was. It's a place of no concept. Because we think in concepts, right? Every thought we have is a concept that's made up of something else. Nibbana is a place with no concept.
It's inevitable.
It's an African concept.
Inevitable.
Yes, okay. You ended it up that way.
Oh, yes.
After you reach Nibbana, do you stay alive?
After you reach Nibbana, then you become a teacher. Whether you are actually a teacher, like I'm a teacher right here, but I'm not really your teacher, I'm a guide, or you teach others by your example, you're still a teacher.
But you come out of Nibbana and go back into the other
What
jhana.
changes, yes. It's like you see a flame and you blow the flame and it goes out. Where'd the flame go? Same with Nibbana. No more fire. Sure, some
fearless being. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. And may all beings share the spirit that we must aspire for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, Devas and Nagas of mighty power, share the spirit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sāti.